Welcome back to Financial Independence 101. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about the 1099K changing from 20,000 to 600 for the mandatory reporting from all of your payment services, the PayPals, the eBays, the Venmos, the Cash App, all those kinds of things, but start expecting it in 2024. The thing is, they did push it back for a couple of years, and a big reason, really, there's a lot of reasons for that. The first reason was the IRS flat out said no the first year. So in 2022, it should have gone into effect. The IRS said no. 2023, it should have gone into effect, and there was still a lot of pushback. So they talked about stepping it down to 5,000 in 2024. But according to eBay, it looks like it's going to be 600. But we're going to get into talking about this, why they did this, why they pushed it back. Well, obviously it's an election year. This is a Democrat policy that's passed, and there's no way you get elected if half of the country's getting audited because of this nonsense. But we'll talk about this and more coming up. So this was part of a plan called the American Rescue Act of 2021. Significantly modifies the reporting threshold associated with the Form 1099K payment card and third-party network transactions from $20,000 in aggregate payments and $200 in transactions to solely a threshold of $600 in aggregate payment. Now, there's a whole lot of things wrong with this. The big problem here is that 20,000 down to 600 for claiming threshold is ridiculous. Now, you're going to say, okay, you see this with, I think, Amazon affiliates. They already have that at 600. And then a lot of these other ones that are service, like Uber drivers and Lyft, my understanding is they already were going to get one anyway over 600 because that's more like regular pay. But this is purely targeting you selling personal stuff that's already been taxed on at least twice, if not 30 times, and yet it's getting taxed again. But of course, there's more issues than that. See, the average person that's going to be affected by this is selling stuff for the reason of trying to get by with the massively high energy prices. Gas prices are up, electricity's up per kilowatt hour, and there's two electrical companies here locally in Oklahoma that have added $19 and $16 to the base rate, meaning before 1 kilowatt hour is transferred over, you use 1 kilowatt hour, that's already gone up. The base price of even using no electricity has gone up by $19 because of all of this crazy inflation. But these people are selling stuff just to get by, and they're selling usually for half, maybe even 3/4 of what they paid, and they don't have receipts to prove what they paid. So there's a whole slew of problems. That's why the original 20,000 and 200 was already put in place to be reasonable, to have a reasonable expectation of you selling your old stuff to get by and not having to pay taxes on it. Again, double taxation. See, you're taxed on that money when you earned it. You're taxed on sales tax when you bought the stuff. And now when you go to sell it, they're trying to tax you again as earnings. But the problem is most people don't have the proof to back it up. Now, yes, you can go to your tax attorney now that you sell $600. You're now a multinational conglomerate. You need to have a tax attorney. You need to have your... I am joking a little bit, but I'm not. You might find yourself in a situation you need a tax attorney because of this ruling. Now, going from 20,000 to 600 is going to affect a lot of people. There are people that sell like $5,000 worth of stuff and transfer money through these apps as a Cash App. They send somebody money through Cash App. There's no way to change that to a goods and services from my understanding. And so with all of this stuff that's going on, people are going to be heavily affected. And this year it goes to $600 straight up. It's not going to step down to 5,000. It's going to be straight up to 600, and a lot of people are going to be affected by it. A little more about eBay, and you should really break down your 1099 from them, but I understand that they include sales tax that you don't even see, and they add that on to your 1099K as your sales. They look at the gross amount, which is gross that they look at the gross amount. It's on you to, burden of proof's on you, the taxpayer, to prove with documentation what your expenses are, that some of this you don't even get to see. So there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more angles to it. It's more complicated. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an accountant. although I've got a master's degree and I went through all those courses, I understand it. I just can't give anybody some actual advice about it. Now, one of the problems is that American politics is broken. They passed this American Rescue Plan. It costs $1.9 trillion. And yes, they did send the $1,400 checks to people. And yes, people were able to get all kinds of relief for this, that, and another. And literally, I had nothing to do with any of this. They did send me a check, though. I was like, oh, okay, thanks. I'll take it. But now I'm paying it back times 3 in inflation. So understand that. But the problem with American politics is the fact that they can squeeze in this 1099K thing, and other gender affirming care and all that kind of stuff is squeezed into this bill, also pumping up that spending. By the way, Biden did brag about this, that the bill started out at $7.4 trillion, and the Republicans pushed it down to the 1.9. They accepted that. But I have to say, this is why we lost the Speaker of the House. I say we, as all Americans, had one Speaker of the House, and it was Kevin McCarthy. And Republicans wanted to move to a more fair way of doing politics. And they said one bill, one topic, not 72 things crammed into one bill, turning that bill into pork barrel spending. And they can hide a lot. See, when you have big, giant, enormous $1.9 trillion bills, why not break it into $500 million bills and do it that way, and each topic one at a time, and discuss it? Well, because they can hide it from the public, hide it from the population, hide the spending. But every $1 trillion they spend results into a direct net 2% inflation you pay. And I just see it over and over and over. They don't have the money. The government doesn't really have a quarter to their name. They're broke. They're broker than you, broker than me. But anyway, we lost McCarthy on this, and then Mike Johnson's in there. I think Mike Johnson's all right, but he's struggling with the exact same problem of them trying to lump in 72 things into a bill and it taking half a year to get a bill passed. Well, I guess gridlock's good. Now, we're hearing a lot of things about this topic. Biden promises no new taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. Experts doubt he can keep that pledge. And then literally a week later is when the news breaks on this. And I believe I have the timeline set up because this is April of 2021. But he says this over and over and over. But last I checked, $20,000 to $600,000, and that's a new tax that people have never had to pay before because they haven't had to deal with that. Someone that sells $5,000 or something like that hasn't had to deal with it is a new tax on people. But people are going to say, well, this is closing loopholes for tax cheats. But we'll get into that. It's not closing loopholes for tax cheats. I'm working on a video right here. I need to get very specifics on how he handles this, but Jeff Bezos is selling $5 billion worth of his Amazon stock because he knows it's at the top. He knows it's going to tank soon, and he knows he's going to be able to buy it back at bargain basement prices. But he's not paying any taxes on this through some weird kind of loan scheme. It's very complex, but at the end it washes out. He's legally laundering and washing money according to what people are saying on these schemes, but I have to research it further to fully understand it before I'll even discuss it on here. Right now it's still considered rumor or conspiracy. Getting back to the other two topics of if you make less than $400,000 a year, you're not going to see your taxes go up, but Biden's letting the Trump era tax expire. And every time I refer to Biden, we know that dude is not running anything. Dude does not make any decisions. He literally is a puppet that can barely read his teleprompter, and that's it. Barely can do it. And it's sad. I feel for the guy. I feel for his family. I'm not the guy trying to say get what they deserve, but anyhow. All right, so here on the left, you see sort of, I guess, closer to the middle tax rate percentage. On the left side, this is two tables side by side. That is the old one at 2018 level, prior to Trump putting in the new 2018 level. And as you can see, 3 to 4% almost across the board lower under Trump. And that's a lie. You've been lied to all this time. They're saying it's only tax cuts for the wealthy, but here is it's a fact right here that Trump lowered taxes for everybody, except the lowest that doesn't pay because they're below the standard deduction, and some of the higher ones stay the same. They didn't get a tax cut. So looking at this and the way this went, not only is this expiring, but your capital gains. So when they pull the rug out from under the stock market, the stock started falling, you sell it, you're going to be paying 45% capital gains, depending on how much you sell, of course. And then, of course, talking about tax cheats, literally the vast majority of the people that weren't claiming this before because they didn't get a 1099-K, it's small potatoes, it's small numbers when they're just throwing trillions away every year in the trash, but they're going after people that are just trying to feed their kids, keep their houses cooled and warm, or keep their houses from getting foreclosed on, or pay the rent so they don't get kicked out on the street and be added to our homeless epidemic. I mean, there's so many things here, but yet let's go after them. Take one more avenue of struggling people away by taxing the junk they're selling around their house just to get by. I mean, single moms, well, what are they supposed to do? What are single moms supposed to... Oh, I don't even want to hear that. Anyway, Coalition for 1099-K Fairness. This is something that was started by eBay, and there were other platforms. I believe Mercari was part of it. There's several other platforms that are part of it. Basically, they failed. They failed because, again, here we are with the 600. They pushed it back. They fought for it for 2 years. They sort of won. It got pushed back, but now it's failure. It's over. American citizens have lost, and buyers and consumers have lost. Now, I've heard statistics, but I just can't find a hard one, but it's closer to 50% now of Americans that can't cough up $400 for an emergency, meaning that they don't have $400. And if they have an emergency, like a flat tire, which generally you can get a flat tire for most cars for less than $400, so it's not that extreme, but we're talking you get a flat tire, or your car's not starting and you need that car to get to work. A lot of reasons in here that $400 could just end it, and people don't have that. It's up to half now. That's how hard times are, and selling something on the side just to get by is what people do. I mean, if you think about it, the whole pawn shop industry, it's kind of the same thing. It's the same concept of pawn shops, but people that need to pay a bill right now, they know for a fact the pawn shop's going to buy their good stuff for dirt cheap prices. But being able to sell it yourself on eBay or Mercari or Facebook Marketplace or one of those, you can get a higher amount for it than taken to a pawn shop. Either you sell it outright or you pawn it and you think maybe I'll get it back in 90 days, but then again, your situation got worse, so you lose it. So you lose a $100 item for $33, and you could have sold it for 50, 60, or 70, but this policy is affecting Americans and the way they get by. The last thing I want to say is, if you get one of these forms in the mail, make sure it's on your tax return. Do not leave it off. Do not act like it doesn't exist, because the IRS will come after you. And I've had dealings with the IRS. One time I've had dealings with the IRS, and I actually followed up 2 or 3 times on other issues just to make sure everything's good. I follow it to the letter, and I don't even do my own taxes anymore, which is pathetic that I've got an MBA and I don't do my own taxes. But that's the way the situation is. Make sure it's on there. They're not going to audit you. It's not that big. It's not that massive. It's simply this. They're going to tax you for the full amount at your highest tax rate, send you a bill, and you are expected to pay it, and you will have to hire somebody to get through that process. I didn't, with my issue, I just went up there and said, yep, I did make a mistake. Yep, how much do I pay? And it was a $300 mistake, cost me $1,241. That's the problem. This, you could have just paid it right away, whatever you owed, $300, and not have to come back with taxes and penalties and fees years later like I did. And I understand my mistake, my error. Won't ever do it again. But make sure this is on your tax return. If you get one of these in the mail, it's on your tax return. And get advice from an accountant, get advice from somebody on this, because don't go it alone and don't leave it off. So to recap, this bill is terrible. This Rescue America bill was horrible. Wasted money. We're paying much higher prices for things. Inflation tax. And it's partially because of this, not entirely. Partially, I attribute 4% of our inflation to this one bill. But the first year, this whole it's the hidden kind of pork barrel spending type of policy pushed in there. The 2022, the IRS flat out said no. 2023, eBay and the coalition pushed that one back. 2024, I guess everybody's just given up and they don't think that it's going to make it. And when I say repeal absolutely every bill passed since January of 2021, I'm not joking. I think we should, but repealing this might say you have to pay back some of that money, so that might be a problem. But I just want to repeal this aspect of it. It would be nice. It would be helpful. It would help the economy. But what's coming with the economy is so bad with stuff like this, and the stories. The half of America is going to be adversely affected by this. The stories are just going to be overwhelming, and your media is not going to cover it, but I will. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Financial Independence out.